Hi, you're watching a special presentation of the ZS Prize. Our next guest is Ravi Venkatesan. Ravi is the founder of the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, a coalition that aims to create 10 million local entrepreneurs in India and Africa by 2030. Ravi, of course, has many achievements to his name. He's the former chairman of Bank of Baroda, board member of the Rockefeller Foundation, founder of Social Venture Partners, partner Innovators Ventures. He's also the former chairman of Microsoft India, Cummins India, and a former board member and co-chairman of Infosys. Ravi is also an author. His best-selling book, Conquering the Chaos, Win in India, Win Everywhere, was published in 2013 by Harvard Business Review. Ravi Venkatesan is the chair of the ZS Prize. Ravi, you have spent a significant part of your life in the tech industry. The question is, how can artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, factors like that transform Indian healthcare?
Well, thank you, Suresh. It's a great question. I think of all of these technologies, and then there's so many more technologies, merely as enablers. Okay? The real issue is, how do you put them to use to solve some of the pressing challenges in healthcare, in education, all these spaces? So today, there's a lot of excitement about data and analytics and machine learning and these things. Tomorrow, the world will move on and get excited about the new stuff. There's also today genomics, proteomics, and so forth. The question is, what do these things enable you to solve? If you think about what are some of the most pressing challenges in terms of healthcare in India beyond the current pandemic, it's really, in my mind, about two huge things. The first is, like everywhere in the world, how do we move from treating diseases and health issues after the fact to preventing them, detecting them early? And can you use technology in this process? And the second equally burning issue is, how do you enable access to affordable and high quality health services, right? Because that's a big issue in our country.
Let's talk about the ZS Prize. Ravi, you're the chair of the ZS Prize. What drew you to this prize?
What you do is inspire people to pursue their dreams, try and solve some problem that is important to the world. And their success, the recognition they get, then inspires many others to come into the space. And today we live in a world where there are enormous number of problems in every field, whether it's climate change, healthcare delivery, whatever. And our only hope of actually getting to a better place is to dramatically increase the number of people who are working on these problems. So I think the ZS Prize has the opportunity, if sustained over time, to actually make this difference in healthcare, first in India, then in other parts of the world.
Ravi, like you said, this is the inaugural year of the ZS Prize. For the inaugural year, what are your personal aspirations for the ZS Prize?
Well, it's the first year. So number one would be, can we attract and find a small number of people who really have the passion and potential to do important work? I am less obsessed about will their particular idea that they're working on, is that going to really be the most successful innovation or not? Most people, like in venture capital, right? You're betting more on the young entrepreneur or the young innovator rather than the particular idea, because in reality, they will pivot multiple times and the final manifestation of their work could look quite different. But so we want to identify a small number of these people who we think have the potential to do amazing work. We want there to be some buzz for the world to take some notice so that next year there are even more applicants who are drawn to this. We want the jury members and the participants to have a great time in this process. When I think about my fellow jury members, they're phenomenal, highly accomplished individuals, and they're giving a considerable amount of their time. And I hope that the process gets them excited, they learn, they enjoy meeting these participants, and equally all the applicants get to learn and form these relationships with these eminent people. I think if we can do this, and that allows us next year to do even better, it would be a fantastic start.
Ravi, what role do you see the ZS Prize in two aspects? One, advancing healthcare innovation and sort of catalyzing the innovation ecosystem in India.
See, there are a lot of people out there who are smart, capable of doing great things, but they don't know what to apply their minds to. Or they say, well, I'm a technologist, I don't know anything about healthcare. And so they end up opting out. When you put together a curated set of problems or challenges, well, it inspires lots of people to come together and start working on these issues. That's a good thing. The second is once we have got the list of applicants down to a manageable number, the idea is that they get a mentor from ZS. Some of the jury members may also be helpful. And you start working with these innovators to think about how to develop their ideas and take it to scale, in the course of which partnerships will be critical. That you mentioned the word ecosystem, right? So anything to take to scale requires a set of people, actors in the ecosystem working together. So I think if we are good at this, if we are successful at this, we'll begin to draw more and more people into taking some of these ideas to scale. Again, if we are able to find even 3 or 4 phenomenal individuals with interesting ideas, I think the buzz that it creates begins to then attract much more interest, and which we can amplify in a variety of ways. So yeah, I think it's a great start. The important thing is to get going and then iterate quickly.
As jury chair, Ravi, what are you personally looking for in the ideas and innovations?
What I'm personally looking for is, as I said in one of my earlier remarks, somebody who's obsessing not about technology, but about a problem. Okay, so I would look for somebody who's really thinking very, very deeply about a particular issue. Okay, and then of course coming up with some lateral ideas that we haven't seen before about how to solve it. The second thing I would look for is, are they thinking of designing for scale right from the beginning? One of the things I've learned over the years, first at Microsoft, then at places like Infosys, is when you think and design for scale, the solution looks very different than if you design it and then start struggling to figure out, how do I replicate this? It just doesn't go. The solution itself, the design itself looks different. So I want to see them thinking about scale. I would be looking for how compelling is their prototype or proof of concept, right? So we understand many of the ideas or the solutions may be nascent, okay? They're relatively early stage, but how creative are they in demonstrating a proof of concept or an early prototype of their thing that just knocks your socks off, and you know when you see it that there's something out here that's kind of important. Those would be something. And of course, most of all, the individual, and if they are a small team, and the quality of that team.
Ravi, solving for healthcare in India is one of the big themes of this year's prize, and you just spoke about scale in your previous answer. If I was a young innovator or an entrepreneur, how should I start by thinking about scale? Where do I start?
It's very interesting. I wrote this book called Conquering the Chaos, which tried to make the argument that the single most important reason for a global company to come to India is innovation, not the market itself. Because India doesn't have a very big affluent segment, but you have a very large population of people who want things. In this case, they want access to affordable quality healthcare services, but are not able to pay much for it. Okay? So you have innovations that succeed in India, those that think dramatically differently about the price-value trade-off, right? So there's so many examples of this, ranging from the cost of a gigabyte of data to the cost of making a cell phone to the space missions, etc. The cost-performance ratio has to be a factor 100 off from conventional existing solutions in the developed world. And you need to be thinking about this. I think it's very broadly called frugal innovation. Okay? Then you have to think a lot about how you're going to scale in terms of distribution reach. Okay? That's despite all the progress that India has made. Reach, or conversely, access, is a huge challenge. Okay, so whatever solution you think, you've got to be thinking about how am I going to get it to at least 100 million people. Those would be, I think, two of the most important things. Yeah, I would think so.
Right. Ravi, the ZS Prize is also open to students, and not just students from medicine or engineering. It's open to, for instance, literature students, artists, design students, architects. Give us a word of advice on how non-medical, non-engineering students should approach a healthcare prize.
So today, innovation requires us to think very, very holistically about these solutions. Now, if I'm a literature student and I'm interested in this aspect of healthcare, but I don't have the domain knowledge, what I should try and do is, rather than opt out, find someone I can work with, collaborate with. Back to the original conversation we had around teams that are whole, and try and find one or two buddies who have the knowledge that I don't have, but work feverishly towards it. That's how I'd approach it if I were young. And if you look at my own background in terms of the very, very interesting things I've done over my professional life, very rarely have I had the domain knowledge required to do what I did.
Ravi Venkatesan, thank you for talking to us at the ZS Prize. You're watching a special presentation. Stay tuned for more.
Thank you, Suresh.